So just the other day, I posted on my Instagram, what is it that you struggle with the most while being on your MPC? And I had so many different people engaging with this post. One of the most frequent questions that I was getting asked is just structuring or arranging a song within the MPC. So what I want to do right here is just go through and show a few of the tools or a few ways where you could arrange a song with your MPC. Now, the way I'm going to show you has been very helpful for me because I come from the DAW, and when I used to work on the DAW, I like seeing everything on my, well, I guess now I call it the grid editor because I can see the notes that I'm playing. So there's ways within the MPC that almost make it feel like I'm in my DAW. Let's get right into it. I have a beat right here that I was just, I called up. As a matter of fact, this is one of the samples that I got from my sample sharing program. If you are a member, make sure you download these sample programs that I'm sharing with you. I actually grabbed this Rafael packet. I downloaded this, and right here where I go to browse, I go to MPC1, and right here I go to that Rafael folder that I just downloaded, and I have so many different sample chops right here that I can go load up. Boom. I got this one. I got this one. So I got this sample program and I chopped it up and started building a beat around this sample. Now, once I added drums and a bass line with the sample chops that we're just listening to, I'm going to show you what I have within one sequence. One thing that I want us to understand is the MPC is like a building block of different sequences. A lot of the times I only use one sequence. You could build an entire song within one sequence. The reason why I'm working within sequence one is because this is like my scratch paper. This is where I'm building my idea. Once I feel good and comfortable with my idea, then we can start structuring it and start building it as a song, the way we want to add an intro or do some drum cutouts or drops. This is where I want to get into right now in the video. So let's go ahead and hear this.
Alguien nunca volvió, déjalo.
All right, so that's what I have. It's one sequence. As you could see right here, we have our top strip that you see on your MPC is everything that has to do with your sequence. So as you see, I only have one sequence. I don't even have it named. That's all it is. It's just an idea that's going to be looping nonstop. That is like the most important part for me. It's just building that sequence. Now, how can I get these three elements and start building a song that has some changes in the middle of it? Maybe I want to drop some drums, or maybe I want to create an introduction for my song. Now, when it comes down to this part of building my song, I bounce back between two different methods within the MPC. You got your sequences, which we see up here. We're in sequence one. We don't have no other sequences other than sequence one. And then we have our grid editor. Our grid editor, and I suggest you become very familiar with your grid editor because this is where it's kind of reminds me of Ableton, where I can see everything right here on the grid, all the notes that I'm playing. I can structure, cut out, add or loop or take away anything that I want. I can do that right here within this grid editor. And now the reason why I say I jump between sequences in a grid editor is because if I want to add an introduction to my song, well, maybe I want to add introduction to sequence one. And in sequence two is where I want the verse to drop in. Well, what I will do in this case is go right here where it says sequence one, hit the little pencil icon, copy the sequence, and let's put it in sequence number two. I'll name this verse, hit do it. Now, if you go back to your main, you'll see that we're on sequence two, which is our verse, but it's the same exact thing of sequence one. And then we go to sequence one. But what we can do now in sequence one, since we have all of our elements here, we could go to where it says our sample, where we see our sample track. And in my sample track, I want to switch it up a bit. I want to change some right here so I can add an introduction. So being in sequence one, I'm going to jump into my grid editor. And being right here in my grid editor, if you want to delete all these notes that you have right here, you got to go to your selector, which is up here, and then just with your finger, click and hold, hit shift. As you're holding down shift, you'll see cut and cut out all the notes. Now you have an empty grid. If I hit play, all we're gonna listen to are just drums and bass. So at this point, now I can start sketching out ideas, or I can try out different pads that could build as an introduction.
Llóralo, déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar.
Boom. Okay, all right. See, now I have an idea right there.
Déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar.
Now everything sounded a little off because the bass is just playing a whole different key. It's fine. I don't need the bass. As a matter of fact, I go to my main page and jump over to your bass and just mute your bass. Now I go back. I only have drums and sample at the moment.
Déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar.
Now, how many bars do I have? I have 3 bars. 1 bar, 2, and 3. I go back to my main page, and right here in this sequence 1, in our introduction sequence, I want to switch this from 8 bars to 3 bars. Now, what I'm going to do is, since I have 2 beats right here that are just empty and they're blank, I'm going to select this whole entire performance with the selector, and I'm going to nudge everything. As long as my time correct is turned on, the TC is turned on, so as long as you hold down shift, if TC is lit up red, that means time correct is turned on. I can hit nudge right here, and I can use my scroll wheel and just nudge these over a few beats. Now I just have 2 empty beats in the beginning that I can fill up with. I'm going to hit overdub.
Llóralo, déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar.
Okay, so now we're starting to use these sequences as a building block. Think about it as a puzzle, right? You are going to start using different sequences. You can label, now we can label this one intro. Hit the little pencil or letter icon. I can name this intro. And with our introductions, what we could even do right here is go to our drums, and maybe within our drums, I'm going to go into the grid editor. Now, that's why I mentioned I get familiar with this grid editor. You could use a little loop icon or zoom icon and use pinch to zoom and just zoom out. Look at your entire performance, and I want to go to my kick. I'm going to delete all these kicks, hit cut, the snare, cut all these right here, boom. And I'm just going to leave the shakers.
Llóralo, déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar.
All right, so now you see how I'm jumping between sequences and working with the grid editor to tighten up different sections of the song. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you at the end of the video how I structure all these together in song mode. Now, look, I actually want to take a moment real quick. I know YouTube and learning on YouTube is so helpful. There's so much information on YouTube that's very helpful, but it could take so much time to understanding an entire MPC workflow just surfing through YouTube videos. Well, I do want to save you some time and let you know that I just released an MPC course from start to finish. What this course is 4 hours of learning and understanding the basics when it comes down to loading samples, sampling into your MPC, chopping up samples, arranging your beat. I dive deep into how the stem separation function works. So this course is going to be active. If there's any updates, I will be adding those videos within the course. Now, this course is a total of 4 hours with 40 plus videos as we are still building it as we go. Make sure you look at the chapters and the modules within those chapters. Another thing to keep in mind, there is payment options. So if you want to go ahead and make payments on this, there is Klarna, Afterpay, PayPal, as you see these options right here. So make sure you go down to the link of this video and enroll into the masterclass today. All right, so right here we have our intro and our verse. you could continue to just copy and paste different sequences. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But another method that works really great is, let's say I only have my intro and then I have my verse sequence, which has all my elements, drums, bass, and sample. Well, within this verse sequence, what I can do, since it's 8 bars, I could just hit this pencil icon. Instead of copy and paste to a different sequence and having myself jumping between sequences, I could just double length this. When I hit double length, now it turned this 8 sequence into 16 bars. So it's just doubling it. If I hit that pencil icon and do it again, it's going to double those 16 bars into 32 bars. So now if we go to our grid editor and we zoom out, I mean, we have an entire song right here. Now this is going to play for a very long time. But what you can do, you can start automating certain sections right here. This is where it gets very fun. And the way that I would fly through and start choosing different sections, and this is why I enjoy the grid editor within the MPC so much, is because you have, what you see this up here is this blue line or this blue highlight up here that's highlighting your beats and your bars. Well, if you go to your 4th cue link right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can use these 2 cue links at the very bottom, and these are going to be your loop sections. So you could focus on specific sections. Let's say your first 2 bars. On bar 3, you want to drop out the kick and the snare. So I'm going to just loop right here, bar 3, boom. I'm going to focus on bar 3. So I want to take off the kick and the snare. So I could just grab this selector tool, grab that kick, cut it, grab that snare, cut it. So now we have this.
Si alguien nunca volvió, si alguien nunca volvió.
I could actually even add this open hat.
Si alguien nunca volvió.
Now that hat is a little too loud. I go back to my main page. Within my main page, I open up this little eyeball icon, lower down that open hat. Yeah, there you go. So now if I play it from the beginning,
Si alguien nunca volvió.
and now what you could also do, being seeing everything with 32 beats right here with this long sequence, try something else that's a bit different. You could jump into your track mutes. Being in your track mutes, if you want to just perform something with your track mutes, if you're probably like, wait, what's track mutes? Track mutes is a way to mute your tracks. So you could have drops, cutouts, if you want to take off the bass. Now, what's really cool about this is kind of performing your beat as you're playing your sequence. So there's so many times that I have a 1 bar, or I'm not, like a 2 bar or a 4 bar sequence, and I'm performing some variations, dropping out drums, dropping out my sample, and it sounds so good to me. And I'm like, oh man, I should record that. I should have those drops because now I'm performing my beat. I'm bringing it to life, so it's not just the same thing being repeated over and over. So now what we could do is automate these mute groups. So we could hit record and play start and start performing this live.
Si alguien nunca volvió.
So if we hit play, yeah.
Si alguien nunca volvió.
That is so cool. You have 32 bars that you can play with. Do some drops, take out the hi-hats. What a lot of people will do is just build one sequence with synthesizers, keys. It's just so many tracks stacked up on top of each other, but it's not that they're all going to play at the same time. They just work with these mute groups and just build a very long sequence and just cut out the synthesizer or bring in the shakers or bring in, by utilizing these mute groups. Now, something else that's very cool is you could go into your grid editor and let's say you want to just loop bar 17 and 18. And you're like, you know what? I want to focus on this bar right here and I want to do some mute group variations and perfect these 2 bars. You could hit, go back to your mute track or your track mute, and it's only going to loop those 2 bars there. All right, so you see the way I'm moving around. I'm using some of these track mutes, the sequences, as we just created 2 sequences. I just have my intro and then my verse, which is 32 bars, but I'm utilizing these track mutes to drop out certain sections or certain elements to add some variation to the beat. Once, let's say you have everything perfected and you're like, you know what, I'm happy with this. I want to export this. I want to put these 2 sequences together as if it were a song. Well, you could just go to your menu, and once you're in your menu, you'll see this option right here that says song. Once you see song, click into that, and now it's going to show you on your left-hand side a strip where you will then start building your songs according to the sequences that you want to put first, second, or third. So in order for us to see our sequences, we can see right here our pads. If we see right here at the bottom, this is sequence 1, which is our intro. Then this is sequence 2, which is our verse, and it will actually even show you it's 32 bars long. In order for us to start putting these sequences right here on our song list, we could just hit record, and then you could hit sequence 1 is our intro, is already there. Sequence 2 is our verse, it's already there. Once you hit play, it's going to play this as our intro and then our verse.
Llóralo, déjalo, llóralo, pero vuelve a empezar. Si alguien nunca volvió.
Now it's going to play the entire 32 bars. If you choose not to duplicate the track to 32 bars and you want to just build a bunch of different sequences, well, you're going to see all those sequences that you put together and add variation. You'll see them all right here on your list right here. And you can just start adding them back and forth. And now let's say we're happy with this. We want to export this into an MP3 or a WAV file. Being right here within the song mode page, you'll see that you have export. Hit export. And right here, you have 2 options. You could either export the stereo mix, which is going to be your master. Make sure you select that, outputs 1 and 2. And down here will be if you want this a WAV file or AIF or MP3. I'm going to go WAV file and then 24-bit and 44.1. Hit export, and it's going to ask you where do you want to export this. And just hit save. And it'll export a WAV file. Now, you also have the option to hit export, and once you have the entire song built out, instead of exporting the stereo mix, you could select separate programs. What that's going to do is just export your drums, your bass, your sample, any other track. If you have a plug-in instrument, it'll separate everything for you, and it'll give you WAV files separately, so you could import those WAV files into Pro Tools, into Ableton, and start giving it a deeper mix with your DAW. You go ahead and do that with these settings right here. All right, so I know this was a lot to cover. This is not the only way you can do this. There's so many different ways. Everybody will have their own style of creating or building or structuring a song. There's so many different ways, but one thing I recommend is get familiar with this thing. There's so many tools right here that you could get familiar with. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hang out with me as we continue to dive in and use the different MPCs that we have. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll catch you guys on our next video. Peace.
Si alguien nunca volvió.